Howells. I am the director of IT for Bankert Marketing's IT department, for our Learn Online security department. Do I need to upgrade to Windows 11? So the foundation of this, Windows 11 was released October 5th, 2021. And people were kind of put off guard by this because Windows 10 was supposed to be the last ever upgrade that was supposed to happen. Nobody else was supposed to be, everything was going to be periodic releases and updates. We weren't going to have any of the characteristics of that happened previously in Windows. So things that Windows 11 was supposed to improve on was the security features, optimization for cloud services, artificial intelligence, and it was going to come with new system requirements to help make you safe. The downsides to Windows 11, you had to have a Microsoft account. It was no longer an option or encouraged. You had to have. You'll see an asterisk beside that because we'll come back to that. It requires what's known as a TPM module, or trusted platform module. It immediately cut out a lot of computers that people had because the restrictions, there was very, very defined. We will only support these newer systems. Where in Windows 10, you were able to define and make your system work however you wanted it to. Windows 11 got very limited in scope. The idea was we're going to make it simple for everybody. You don't have to be an expert to run it. The downside to it is for IT administrators or people that understood what they were doing, it took away our control. The other thing that it introduced, but people didn't like, was the Microsoft Store. The idea behind it was very much exactly the way Apple's would work, in that you could only get your software from them. It's enforced, but not heavily enforced. The other thing that people didn't like is it no longer felt like Windows. It felt like a Mac system, the iMac. And one of the things that they were doing is they were trying to pull Mac users back to Windows. And it just didn't work. They ended up actually introducing a section of Windows 11, which on a different program workshop will probably work around how to get better attached to Windows 11, but they actually have a setting in there to make it look and feel like Windows 10. The last thing was only Microsoft approved applications can be installed. And this goes along with that TPM module. It goes along with your Microsoft account. They actually monitor and watch what you have. Windows 10 was supposed to be the last ever operating system that Microsoft was going to produce. Users would never, ever have to update again. The updates would just be poured out to them, and they would install it automatically, and life was supposed to be good. And when Windows 10 came out, it was a little on the chunky side, but over time it evolved, and the average person got quite comfortable with it, to the point that there's not many Windows 7s or 8s out there anymore, unless they're built into legacy systems, or people that just couldn't make that move, right? So the next question that we're asking, why are people resisting migrating to Windows 11? I mentioned the look and feel of Apple. The new interface is very cumbersome. They didn't label buttons. They went by graphic representations. So, and then they changed the icons to top it all off. So you were kind of guessing at what you were doing. So the interface became cumbersome. External devices wouldn't migrate. I'm going to pick up my keyboard here so everybody can see it. This is a good old-fashioned wired keyboard, because my wireless keyboard, which was only about 4 years old, didn't migrate, and it was a name brand keyboard. It did not migrate, did not work. I have to go out and find new drivers to make it work. The next thing was system requirements. This trusted platform module, not every older computer had it. And by older, we're talking about computers that were built 2017, 2018, in and around there. They didn't have the requirements to make the jump. And when you think about it, that's not a big brick of time, especially when you introduce that for 2 to 3 years, we were dealing with COVID and people really couldn't buy new computers. They didn't have access to desktops, even though we did most of our life through computing and the internet. There was kind of a dark era where nobody got new equipment. The other thing is legacy requirements. So if you're a business and you have manufacturing, or you're a media business where you have specific software that was written, it could have been written specifically for Windows 10, and guess what? It didn't migrate. So now you're stuck on Windows 10 because to replace that equipment, a really good example of it is one client we have. They can't move to Windows 10 because they have a $10 million investment in a CNC press. And the software to run that CNC press is only written for Windows 10. So they're kind of stuck on Windows 10. They can't move. And then the other thing that really affected people why they're not moving, if you're older, such as myself, you remember Windows XP being wonderful. You remember Vista being terrible. You remember every other release of Windows, if it was supposed to release, because they released one immediately the next year, it was less than phenomenal. It was terrible. And it would turn people off. And then suddenly we get a good, stable Microsoft operating system, and we would stick with it. Another good example is Windows 7 to Windows 8. Windows 8 was terrible, so they had to release Windows 8.1, which was an improvement. Nobody wanted to move off of 7, so they released 10, which was the improvement. And even going to 10, it took a couple years before they finally dialed out the bugs. So why is it important that we move now? Well, when Microsoft released Windows 11, they made an announcement. They said, October 14th, 2025, we are no longer going to support Windows 10. And they anticipated that all of us would move and just be happy, and it would go along swimmingly well. They estimate there's 1.4 billion Microsoft operating systems and desktops in the world. When Microsoft ceased supporting Windows 7 and 8, the number of people that had picked up Windows 10 was about 80% to 90% of the users. The remaining 20% were legacy. Our people just weren't going to change regardless. We're coming to the end of Windows 10, and 40% of people still have Windows 10 on their desktops and refuse to migrate. So Windows is panicked. We as users are panicked because people are like, well, what's going to happen? Is October 15th going to come around, my computer not going to work? Short answer is no, your computer is going to work. So what can we do? Well, let's look at what we need for Windows 11. For Windows 11, there's a minimum processor requirement. The general rule of thumb is an 8th generation processor. You need an i5 8th generation processor or better. Newer i3s, I believe it's 11th generation. i7s, I stick with telling people 8th generation and up, you're good. Okay. The other thing that it requires is the TPM. a 2.0 TPM. I got good news on that and bad news on that. Some of the systems that are right on the verge and they're like, I don't have a 2.0, is a firmware update. So we can get you there if we need to. Now, Windows says that Windows 11 will operate on 4 to 8 gigabytes RAM memory. The reality is that's going to only run the processor. If you're wanting to run any applications, you're talking about, let's say you turn on Word and Excel, you're going to need 16 gigabytes of memory for it to run and not crash. That's just the hard reality. If somebody comes to me and says, I need a computer, what do I need? I ask them, well, what are you doing? They say typical office stuff. Okay, you're going to need 16 gigs and you're going to be comfortable. It's not going to be no rocket ship, but it's not going to feel like it's taking forever. Okay. Windows 11 was designed for artificial intelligence and cloud computing. That was supposed to be the next great big thing, was cloud computing. These both put a large demand on the processor, okay? With cloud computing, that's constantly synchronizing what you're doing with what the processor is in the cloud. And the thought process behind this from Windows was, well, we're going to be okay because the cloud's going to do all the heavy lifting. Nobody anticipated that in order for cloud computing to work, you would need to have constant back and forth between the computer and the cloud, and that would be extra hard on the processors. The other thing, nobody anticipated how much processing power artificial intelligence would use. The other limiting factor is when Microsoft designed Windows 11, they didn't consider enterprise operations. So if you're doing heavy video editing, if you're doing heavy graphics, be it AutoCAD or Solid Edge, or rendering and modeling, a lot of these people use a processor called Xeon. The average user hasn't heard of it. It's the type of processor that's inside a server. Microsoft kind of forgot about it and they didn't plan around the architecture. But as time evolved, they realized their mistakes and they released Windows 11 Enterprise. So people like myself that have these Xeon chips in their computers, we've been now included. But prior to about 2 years ago, we couldn't do anything. We were stuck at 10. The other thing that we had to deal with was we needed system resources. We needed an Ethernet connection. You need to have a minimum of Wi-Fi to connect. I will always recommend a solid Ethernet connection over Wi-Fi or Wi-6. Excuse me. It's just a question of being solid. Especially with cloud computing, you're going back and forth. You just need that bandwidth. Ethernet is always going to be faster than Wi-Fi. The day has not changed where it won't change. It's just the technology involved in Wi-Fi versus the technology involved in wired, and wired will eventually become fiber. And you can't move faster than the speed of light. Previously, Microsoft would allow operating systems drivers to move forward. So if you had an old keyboard, in my case, and I had an older Logitech keyboard, the driver would move forward and it would work with the new system. Windows 11, not so much. One of the common things I have when people do move to Windows 11 is, can you find me a printer driver? My scanner's not working. How do I attach my new mouse? We lost some of this. Some of it we're gaining back, but literally, I'm not kidding. My Logitech keyboard, I had to throw it to the side because it stopped working. I had to go to a regular wired keyboard. The irony behind this for me is the keyboard that I use. I specifically went out and looked for. It's a Microsoft keyboard from 2005. But because it's a wired keyboard, it works. The Trusted Platform Module, or TPM, and I'm sure everybody's been hearing about this. It's the single largest setback that people are encountering. Let me explain what a TPM does. TPM, or Trusted Platform Module, is designed to keep your computer safe. When you start your computer up, it looks at the software and says, is this number right for your key? Yes, therefore it can start. Has the system changed from when it was shut down last? No, then it can start. If there's something else in there, and this is supposed to do what they call, stop what they call a root hack, which is allow somebody to stick a new operating system in or new software in that you have embedded, it won't let the system start. It's a protection. So the Trusted Platform was supposed to stop three things. It was supposed to turn around, call the manufacturer and say, hey, is this a real key? The answer is yes, I can start the system. So it was supposed to stop pirated software. It was supposed to stop hacks where the hackers reached in, got through everything, and then stole your system away from you. It does it to a certain extent. But every time you make a better mousetrap, somebody makes a better mouse. So it stops some of the really low-level stuff from happening, but it didn't stop everything. What it did stop is there are many software developers out there making great products. And it would run on Windows platforms, no problem. But just like what happens on Apple's, Windows said, hey, we're losing money. So we're going to make everybody vet their programs through us, and we're going to collect that money back. And then we're going to be the ones to sell it. And we're going to set the prices. And this is a very large issue in the European community right now. There are actually laws and rules being written about this where Microsoft and Apple won't be able to say, you can only buy your software from us. You're going to be allowed to buy it from whoever you want. Your Microsoft and your Microsoft account. And when I built the slide, I said, I don't have one. I don't want one. I don't need one. I'm a free person. Microsoft wasn't designed with the corporate user in mind. They thought of the end home user. And they did this understanding there was a business model at the time called bring your own device. And businesses originally thought this was a great idea because I don't have to pay for my employees' computer. If they bugger it up, I don't care. And I'm just going to put my stuff over top and I'm going to have control of their device. Two things happened. First, employees balked at it because, well, initially they flocked to it. They balked at it because, hang on a second, I'm the one laying out $1,000 and I can't use my computer how I want to. Yeah, not happening. The second thing that happened is employers couldn't impose their will on employees, even though it was bring your own device. As an employee, if I decided that I wanted to put a VPN on my computer, I could. If I wanted to put a game on my computer, I could. Company couldn't stop me. It could stop the program from running properly. It could force me to have to log into their stuff, but they couldn't stop me from doing it. Companies and users, they kind of went away from it. So life got better, but it didn't, right? Now, the other thing that the Microsoft account was supposed to do was it was supposed to save people. So let's say your hard drive blew up, it died, and now I needed a new computer. Well, all your stuff would be saved in your Microsoft account, and you could turn around and reload it, and it would be great because everything that identified your computer would be saved in your Microsoft account. So it saved what kind of computer you had, it saved the type of hard drive you had, it saved what configuration your computer was in, it saved if you upgraded your computer, and by upgrade your computer, if you had put a new graphics card in or a new Wi-Fi card or changed your memory, it told them a lot of information. A lot of people got really nervous about that. But it would help if your computer broke. Because as long as everything but the hard drive stayed the same, then, well, it would let you reload all the stuff you purchased. But if you bought a new computer because it was a new computer, well, therefore you needed to buy a new license. So if you had a standalone Office or a standalone QuickBooks or a standalone or whatever, because it was in your Microsoft account, you now had to go out and buy it again because it was considered a new license. Okay. So for individuals, this worked fine. For small businesses, this didn't work. Part of the reason why, as a small business, I own all the computers in the organization. I don't want individuals having my Microsoft account. And I don't want individuals using their Microsoft accounts on my computers. So there's a caveat in here, and we've done this for clients. There is an exception, and it's called OOE. And our OOBE, correction, out of box experience. We do this for clients. It takes us a few minutes. If you're getting a new computer, we'll set it up. We can make it so you don't need to have a Microsoft account. That's a service we offer. It's fairly easy. It takes us a few minutes and it allows you to have it. Okay. The other thing is for small businesses, you're not big enough to have your own domain or a server per se. So you needed a different way to manage it. The Microsoft Store was a single click experience. The idea is that you'd be able to go in, grab what you need, get out. Do I have to upgrade? The whole point of this workshop. Do you have to upgrade? October 14th, 2025, Microsoft will officially stop offering security upgrades. It will end. But there's a caveat to all of this. Windows is obligated by a contract to support Windows 10 until 2026. There's something called an LTSC, our long-term servicing channel. So enterprise users, because they buy these licenses in bulk, and they have to be given a guarantee of how long these licenses will be good for, they're offered in 5 and 10-year increments. So the shortest one for sure will end in 2026. Now, you can pay to have your Windows 10. They're offering it to everybody. It's a license extension program. And if you're on Windows 10, you've probably seen it sent to you when you look into your updates. And they tell you, upgrade to the latest version of Windows 10 and give us $30 and you'll be able to use Windows 10 for another year. Or if you sign up for a Microsoft account, we'll give you an extension for free till October 2026. Or if you use our backup service, we'll give you an extension on Windows 10 for free till 2026. Now, it's not really clear right now, but there's a possibility that there'll be an extension till 2031. Nobody knows how many 10-year LTSCs are out there. And if they are, they're guaranteed to trickle out into the wild. We discussed this. They're offering the $30 extension until 26. It's called the Extended Security Updates platform. The neat thing about it is for every $30 American that you spend, you can update 10 licenses. So if you have 10 devices, you spend the $30 US once, and you can do 10 machines on it. The free is limited to a single machine each. Do I have to upgrade? The answer is no. Do nothing. Your computer's going to keep working. The only thing that I advise people, make sure you have a great antivirus, and any patches that are out there, make sure they're implemented. Without that, you're going to be really at risk. And the average user, home user, small business user, we have the attitude, my computer's working fine, I don't want to touch it, I'm not going to do the update. This is one of the few instances where I'm going to tell you, do your updates. Because if you don't, you're going to be really exposed. So these are different scenarios and how I would approach them. Scenario one, my computer was a custom-built monster. There's businesses and individuals, we all know we're out here, where I do graphic design, or I do CNC, or I'm a designer for AutoCAD, or I do audio production. So I built a machine, and gamers fall into this list as well. I built this big computer with the fastest processor I could get, with the most memory I can get, and the most video card I can get. Do a serious evaluation of the computer. The truth of the matter is the average desktop has a lifespan of 8 years. That's when you can't get parts for it anymore. That's when the components themselves start to break down. That's when hard drives suddenly aren't quite compatible as they used to be, and they're hard to get. So what I tell people is look where you're at. If you're at your midlife on the machine and you've done your midlife upgrade, then I'd consider the extended user's license. I would consider holding on to it. If I'm coming up to my midlife upgrade, that upgrade might just need to be a new computer purchase. It's sad, but it's what it is. I went through that exact scenario. I used to have a computer. It had an absurd amount of memory in it. It had an absurd size. It had 2 absurd graphic cards in it. And Windows 11 came along and I couldn't make that leap. And do I put any more money into this? Or do I take the components back and start from scratch? I had to start from scratch. It was expensive, I won't deny it, but I had to do it. Scenario 2, my computer has legacy functions. This is for companies that have databases. They have specialized SQL databases. They have specialized software for manufacturing or production, be it video production, sound production, manufacturing production. Even certain printers require equipment. CNC machines. I have a client that still uses a Tandy TRS-80 to make the tapes that their CNC machine requires to do manufacturing of steel parts. So what can we do? It's very cost prohibitive because you're not just replacing a computer. You're not replacing $1,000 computer. You could be replacing upwards of a $10 million punch press. And guess what? That's just cost prohibitive. So what do I recommend? Where possible for security reasons, isolate the systems. Take them off open networks. You can leave them on your network, but don't give them access to the internet. Back up the systems. Keep those backups secure in a place that if something does happen to the computer, we're blowing it out and we're putting the backup in as if nothing had happened and it's going to come back the way it was. Replace them with virtual computers. That is a huge one. The wonderful thing about a virtual computer is it doesn't care about whether the operating system's up to date, behind, or anything else. Yes, we're going to buy a computer. We're going to buy a newer computer, which is running Windows 11 Pro. There's a program in it called Hyper-V. It's going to virtualize a pile of computers, and your Windows 10 machine is going to go back on there. And if something happens that it corrupts, you don't care because, boom, that one just got blown out, and we're going to restart that virtual computer. All your data and everything is going to be fine because with a virtual computer, it's constantly doing backups, and it holds on to those backups. It's called a snapshot, and it holds on to those backups upwards of 2 months. So we can go back to a time and place where it wasn't infected and restart it. And you're going to lose 5 minutes in your day as we restart it. The other option, and a lot of companies are doing it, they're starting to look at different operating systems. There's Linux, there's Chrome OS. And with Linux, Linux is a very big operating system in that there's many variations of it out there. Most popular is Ubuntu for personal users. For enterprise users, we use Red Hat, or it's known as, I can't think of the other name for it right now, but Red Hat is what we know it as. Both of these are very, very, very capable. Both of them go so far as in a lot of the Linux programs have equals or better operating than the Windows platforms that support your current systems. The only downside to Linux is there's a learning curve to it. In Europe, Linux has actually replaced Windows in most major corporations. Third scenario is computers aren't cheap. It's cost prohibitive. For the average home has no fewer than 2 computers in it in a family of 4, and can have upwards of 3 computers per family member. That means laptops, desktops. We're not even counting tablets. We're just counting those 2 items. And a company with less than 10 employees, you will have an average of 7 to 8 computers if you're a service-oriented company, which we're talking about a photography studio, we're talking about a pharmacy, we're talking about insurance agencies, something where in order to service my clients, I need to have a screen in front of me to get into their information. There's no way around it. You're going to have 7 to 8 computers. And a company of 4 to 5 employees, you're going to have 4 to 5 computers. It's almost a 1-to-1 ratio, because the only exception is a kiosk or a retail outlet where you may only have 2 or 3 to your employees. But that's a very, very rare exception. Computers aren't cheap. So what are our alternatives to this? We've talked about it already, the extended security update program. $30, it's going to buy you another year. It's going to give you a chance. And especially on a small business, if you got enough machines on Windows 10, you do it once, you can probably cover your entire small business for the year to give you a chance to replace computers. Okay? That's the first one. Second one, switch operating systems. We've talked about Linux, we've talked about Chrome. Both of these are viable options. A lot of people already use Google for Sheets. They're using their free Office program. They're using their free, I can't even think of all the programs on Google. Linux runs an emulator that can run all of Windows operating systems. It can run all of Windows programs. Programs such as QuickBooks, Sage, Photoshop, Adobe's products are all offered in Linux flavors. And if they're not, there's an emulator that runs. And if you need something even beyond that, believe it or not, there's better programs that come built into programs like Ubuntu with LibreOffice. We've all heard of Firefox, Foxit Reader, Thunderbird. These are all productivity tools that are in there. There's a PDF editor in Linux. I found it the other day and I was amazed by it. It is actually a better PDF editor than Adobe Acrobat itself. Just doesn't have the popularity based on the operating system. The next question I get about it, well, how hard is it to install these programs? Well, Sarah, who's our research specialist, my wife, had to help me one day because I had a large group of computers that needed to be done. I showed her once how to do it, and she proceeded to install Ubuntu onto, we'll say, 20-ish plus machines on her own, no questions, no nothing. And within about 3 to 4 minutes, she with 3 to 4 minutes, she was able to work her way through the system, understood it. They're great operating systems. Option number 3, refurbished programs. At Bankert Marketing, we represent a couple of different refurbished programs. The computers come directly from Lenovo, Dell, or HP. Usually these computers are off lease, which means they've gone to the manufacturers. The manufacturers have tested them, made sure that they're compliant as they were the day that they were purchased. They make sure the memory's good. They make sure the hard drives are good. They make sure the operating system is there and up to date, properly plugged and patched. They're ready to go. And these computers usually come from military, large corporations. Very seldom will they ever come from a small business, which means these are enterprise level computers. You're not walking into Best Buy, Visions, Costco, your local computer store and just buying these programs. These are coming back from schools. They're coming back from governments. They're coming back from rigid environments where the machines have to be taken care of. And if they don't meet the qualifications, they don't get issued as refurbished. They don't get that designation. On average, the cost of these machines are anywhere from a quarter to half their original value, cost-wise. You can, and we do offer, depending on the machine, we do offer, there's extended warranties that go for 1 to 2 years, which 2 years is actually better than the manufacturer's warranty. But the manufacturers want these machines back out there. They're going to make sure that they're compliant. The last one is install a good antivirus, good paid antivirus. I know there's AVG. I know there's a bunch of other free antiviruses. Don't. If you pay for the antivirus, you're getting a warranty. They're not saying that you're not going to get infected, but they're saying that they're going to clean out the infection for you. You're still going to be exposed. You're still going to be in a bad spot, but it's better than nothing. And if you're going to just stay on Windows 10 and ride it out, That would be my strongest advice to you. Every situation is different. This is just a guide on whether or not. But my bottom line recommendation is you're eventually going to have to go to Windows 11 no matter which way you go. The question is how you get there, and every circumstance is different. Small businesses, medium businesses, our clients that deal with us don't have dedicated IT departments, or they have small dedicated IT departments. You do not have the expertise to turn around and carry a Windows 10 system through. It just isn't there. And even with us at Banker, if you want to carry the system, yeah, we'll help you manage it. But sooner or later, we're going to get to a point where we can't. And we're going to sit down and have to have the conversation anyways. Legacy systems, they're out there. They have to be dealt with. I'm not going to go. Windows 10 has been extended. You're going to pay for it, but it has been extended to 2026. It's going to help you with that cost. $30 American is not the end of the world. Especially when you're handling 10 machines with it, which for most of our clients, that covers everything. Some, it doesn't, but for most, it does. The other thing that's going on is they're already talking about Windows 12. They're talking Windows 12 is going to come out in 2026. It's secretly being, not secretly, but not so secretly being discussed in the background amongst developers. And Windows 12, they're talking, is already going to obsolete another group of computers. It's going to have something that they need called an NRU processor because of all the AI that's coming out. There's a resistance in the industry to force people to turn around and get another computer. This shortly after Windows 11, when they just obsoleted a whole pile of computers. Now you're asking them to do it again. A lot of the computer manufacturers are saying, no, we'll either switch to Chrome or we're going to switch to Linux. And in Europe, this is a huge movement already because of the laws in Europe. Okay. The other thing that's going to happen with Windows 12, it's a rumor, but they're talking that it's going to be a subscription model. You're going to get as much operating system as you're willing to subscribe to. Why are they going to want to do this, and why are they killing themselves? A lot of you have Adobe programs. You had Adobe Pro, you have Photoshop, you have InDesign, you have, I know I'm missing tons of them. Adobe launched a subscription-only service in 2013. And they had a net profit of $1.011 billion. 2024, they reported $21.51 billion gross in revenue. The profit itself was 11 billion net. Why are these software companies moving? Because they see where they're going to make money, and not just a little bit of money, a lot of money. The next big one that did it is Intuit did it with QuickBooks, where no longer can you have a desktop version of QuickBooks. You need to move to their subscription model. Microsoft is looking and exploring moving to their subscription model. Where is that going to leave us? We don't know. This next slide, questions and answers, basically. That's the end of the presentation. Any questions? And I'll happily answer them to the best of my ability.
Okay, Chris, we do have two questions for you.
Okay.
Is is Linux good for games?
My honest answer is I don't know. I've never experienced it myself. I'm not a gamer. That being said, I know Steam and Discord as platforms are largely behind Linux. And with the move in Europe towards Linux, I don't see it not being good for Linux is very, very light on system requirements, so it frees up the system to be able to work. There's an actual, like, we did a Linux upgrade for donation computers for one of our clients, and there was actually a performance enhancement just switching the operating systems that I had a 5th gen i5 sitting beside a 14th or 13th gen i5, and they were both doing web functions at roughly the same rate. I don't know if that answers that question well enough, but it's kind of, I don't know the answer about gaming, but there is a move towards it.
Okay, it sounds like that's good. And then the next question that I have is that there's a lot of noise about Windows 11 being better for you for cybersecurity. Is that the case?
The short answer is no. It is not any better for cybersecurity than Windows 7 or Windows 10 or even Windows 7 for that matter. There is nothing in the operating system that's stopping attacks from happening. You're still dependent on your antiviruses. You're still dependent on your malware. You're still dependent on your vigilance. The security updates keep coming. So their argument that it's better against cybersecurity is because they're constantly issuing security updates. If you go into the extended security program from Windows, you're going to, for Windows 10, you're going to get the same security updates. So, no, you're not any better off from a cyber perspective. The only difference being is with Windows 10 and you don't extend that security, you're going to have a hard time getting those updates. So then, yes, at that point, it'll be better for you. And even then, if you have Windows 11, if you do not, and I emphasis on this, if you do not regularly check on your patches and your updates and you leave it stalled, the current version of it is 24H2. The previous version is 23H2. So let's say you're on 22H2, you don't know because you don't do your updates. You are just as vulnerable as somebody that's on Windows 10 and hasn't done any security updates. If you haven't done those updates, you're just as vulnerable as anybody else. It's your your security is dependent on you.
Okay, thank you. And one other quick question, and then we'll wrap this up. Um, with all of the changes, and updates and all the different emails and whatnot, I'm worried about being phished or clicking on a malicious link. What is the best way to go about signing up for the $30 US that you were talking about extension?
Microsoft has it on their own website. You reach through there and they will help you get it done. That would be my only way where I'm saying you're not going to be phished. And what you will look for in an email that comes from Microsoft, I'll put it in chat here what the address will look like. But one of the security features for any emails is you will see a tag at the end of it. Okay, I'm just putting that into chat for everybody to see where it says at Microsoft and I spelt it all wrong. .com. Whenever you're looking for something to see if it's from Microsoft, it will have it might have communications.microsoft.com, but this very end of it, Microsoft.com, validates that it's officially Microsoft.com because this is ultimately where it's going to end up. If you get a Microsoft.ca or Microsoft OK or an Microsoft TU or something like that, no. Microsoft's official is .com. It's like anything that comes from the government of Canada or any government from that matter is a .gov. Okay. And that'll help you from being phished and don't be afraid if you're not sure what it is, take that particular end of like everything from after the at, plug it into your browser, see where it takes you. Because literally that's an address to take you somewhere. That's how they know where the mail is going. And if it doesn't take it to where you're expecting it to go to, don't follow it.